Hello, everyone. My name is Miles, and you're tuning in at X Raised, where knowledge meets inspiration in the intricate dance of industry evolution. I'm here to spark another meaningful conversation with a bright mind reshaping industries and lives. In this episode, we're diving into the world of addiction recovery, resilience, and redefining success with our lovely guest. She's a consultant, speaker, and the creator of the award winning Recovery Code System. She's helped countless individuals, including BAFTA and Emmy Award winners, stop the cycle of relapse and reclaim their lives. Now, she's back here on our show as she took her mission a step further with her newly launched podcast, Your Sober Sweet Spot, aimed at helping people discover their unique path to recovery. If you've ever wondered what it takes to find balance, peace, and purpose in the midst of life's chaos, you better stay right where you are as we start this interesting conversation with Dr. Alubunmi. Hi, Dr.
Thank
Alubunmi. How are
you.
you?
Hi, Miles. I'm very well, thank you. And yourself?
Good. Thank you for asking. I'm really happy to have you here. And, I'm really excited to hear more about your podcast, your Sober Sweet Spot. It's such a fascinating concept, melding your expertise in recovery with a platform to inspire and educate others. So, what inspired you to create this podcast, Dr. Alabani, and how does it align with your work as a consultant and speaker?
Right. So I created your sober sweet spot, and actually it was a chat with a friend of mine last year, and for probably about a year she's been saying you must do a podcast, and I was like, no, I'm not going to do a podcast, and we just kept talking about it, and she's saying you'd be great. You've got a really great message. There's
Mm-hmm.
so it's so different how you approach recovery that people want to hear it. And part of me was like, what do you like? Want to know? And but so many people have gone, it's so interesting. Like not just my clients, but when I talk about it to other people, they're going, that's really interesting. I didn't know that. And oh wow, I wouldn't have approached it like this. And even just like people who aren't in recovery, they just found it so interesting and so different. So it was just my intention, I think, before the end of last year, just to launch this podcast and do it because there's somebody out there that, you know, needs that message, will just hear just one thing, one technique, one way of thinking, one method, and it may just change their whole recovery. So I thought, let's not be selfish
Yeah.
and really get it out there. And I think part of me was just like, oh gosh, again, it's a self-worth thing. Sometimes that creeps in with me. It's, oh gosh, nobody wants to hear what I want to say. But I have to look at what I've achieved, and it's like, well, yeah, people do probably want to know what you want to say. So I thought, right, I'll get in there and start talking about it. But it was just to be able to give insights to different methods and ways of getting well.
Mm-hmm.
And talking to another friend of mine who's a presenter actually, and she's in sobriety. And we both sort of said that we do talk about, there's a lot of things in the media about getting sober, getting well, stopping drinking, getting
Mm-hmm.
clean, whatever, gambling. But what happens after that when you stop?
Yeah.
It's not really talked about that great transformation, that
Mm-hmm.
is there that we just think once you stop, oh gosh, that's the end of my life, and oh, it's going to be really boring, and
Mm-hmm.
life's going to be dull, and all these things come into play when somebody kind of stops drinking, and because it's not really publicized much in the media, this is where I want to get it out. And she said that's what you're doing, is that you're showing the joys of recovery, how it can be so enjoyable and so transformative and so much fun. um your life starts because
Mm-hmm.
you've stopped, and that's what I want to get across, is that there's a life after you stop drinking, drugging, or whatever you're doing,
Yeah.
and
What's
it's
next?
good. That's what's next. And I'll give insights into things like handling things that would trip us up, like social anxiety,
Yeah.
or handling social situations without alcohol, but having a great time, and developing stronger boundaries so that you're more assertive, more confident, so that you can go about your life. If somebody pressures you to why you're not drinking, or why is this not happening, or why you like this, and you're
Mm-hmm.
well, but it's just a way to give people more comfort in knowing that, life is good. Life is good in
Yeah,
recovery.
hooking them that there's so much way nicer things after that. And I always love to
Yeah,
describe the sweet spot, Dr. Albumni, as a combination of purpose, curiosity, and knowing you, playfulness. It feels really empowering. But
yeah.
let's dig deeper into this idea. For those unfamiliar with the term, can you share what this sober sweet spot means in the context of addiction recovery, and why is finding it so transformative for long-term success?
Yeah. Well, I kind of talked about sober sweet spot, finding your sweet spot for quite a while. And
Uh-huh.
that sweet spot is like a combination of, for me, a sweet spot is being able to have peace, harmony, balance in your life. And that's when everything is just operating in your life really well. You may still have curveballs coming at you, but you know how to handle them. So it's a combination of your strengths, your passions, your just things that you've worked through that have really given you the resilience to be able to, have a great life. So it's like you're in flow. So you know how to handle life a lot better so that it flows a lot better and you feel more comfortable, and that's what a sweet spot is, that feeling good, creating a life that feels good, and finding your sweet spot is the way to do it. And sometimes that takes a little bit of finding, but it's about being kind of open and being curious, and looking at the recovery as a journey rather than a chore, and finding those, sweet spots, and being open-minded. So you find lots of little sweet spot that, oh, that really works well for me, and oh, that works well for me, and you
Uh-huh.
combine it, and then you find, it's just like, do you remember the Goldilocks story
Yeah.
where it was not too hot, not too cold, and it was just
Mhm.
right? Remember, that was the
Balance.
whole, yeah, balance. And that's what I'm looking for, is the Goldilocks, is that looking for that lovely sweet spot where everything's just right, and you can still tweak it, and you can still maneuver in it, and life feels fluid and malleable and great,
But not boring.
but not boring. No.
Uh-huh. Well, that's beautifully articulated.
and and as I said, when I said I'm coming into recovery, I said
Yes.
it's better be good. It better be good.
Well, with you,
And that's
when
what
I
I've
talk
created
about
for
you,
myself.
yes, I mean talking with you, it's the peace, the calmness, love, as you said, harmony, and if I may add, the stress-free feeling.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
I'm not saying that you don't have stress, you don't have challenges in life. Life's life, and you
Yeah.
have to live life on life's terms. So it's not saying that everything's going to be sweet and rosy, but
Mm-hmm.
you can deal with it better, you can cope with it better. You can go back to yourself. And I always say, when you go back to yourself every single time,
Mm-hmm.
when you trust yourself, things feel great. Even if the worst times, I can still go back to myself, and everything's okay. Everything's
Mm-hmm.
going to be fine. And
It's
then you have the wherewithal to pause in your life
yeah.
and be able to take the right steps rather than being impulsive and reactive. And that's when we self-sabotage, and that's when we pick up a drink. So it's just important to have that, just recognize, life is life, but you can maneuver through it a
Mm-hmm.
lot better.
Smoothly, and it's not just
Yeah,
recovery, it's really finding how one lives with meaning and resilience, right?
absolutely.
Uh-huh.
100%. Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
your
Meaning's
work
so important.
your work often focuses on high achievers, workaholics, and creatives. Those are people who seemingly have it all, but grapple with intense internal struggles. So, is it okay if you
Mhm.
share some huge or challenges that they face when it comes to addiction, and how do you help them navigate this high pressure lifestyle?
Right. So let me just wind that back a little bit and just talk
Mhm.
about why high achievers have a, higher rate of addiction. And when you look at the statistics, usually high achievers are, research has shown, 3 times more likely to have an addiction than the general population. And when we look into kind of high achievers, they work from a different operating system.
Mhm.
So their operating system is hyper productive. It has to be high stress, high octane. And you find that type of personality will choose those kind of careers, those kind of businesses, high risk. They're not risk averse. They'll go in. That's what makes them successful is they take risks. They're impulsive. They will take that shot. But that's the same kind of neurological brain circuits that operate with addiction.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why kind of high achieving, high octane professions are also linked to addiction. They're the one and the same. Looking at statistics as well, usually high achievers have from and high performers, very successful people have probably, I think it's 700%, I think is the addiction rate with, let me go back again, hang on.
Go ahead.
So you find that high achievers come from usually their needs aren't met in childhood. Many aren't met in childhood. So you're finding that there's something like a 700% increase in addiction in children who haven't had their needs met as they're growing older. So when I'm talking about needs met is, for instance, maybe neglected, maybe there was abuse, there was
Mm-hmm.
trauma. And those children, as they grow up, are going to be finding ways to get out of that situation very quickly. Um, and then they want to find their way out. So they are very resilient. They will take those risks and get out and achieve brilliantly.
Mm-hmm.
Also, if it's a results focused upbringing, like for instance myself, it was all about getting those grades. It was about education, education, education,
Achieving.
results focus, getting the A's, achieving. And the more you achieve, the less you actually focus on yourself. So you're more focused on the outward achievement, but the inside, the inner self hasn't developed.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about people who are very, very successful, but that inner self has not really fully developed. So those needs haven't been met, or the inner self hasn't been developed. So these are what we're looking at. And also high achievers because they're resilient, they're passionate, they make their decisions themselves, they work at a fantastic pace and
Mm-hmm.
they don't really look for help because they feel like they can help
Yeah,
themselves.
they're very independent. They don't seek help at all.
Very independent, so they will try and find their own answers and find
Mm-hmm.
their own answers unfortunately to their own detriment, because as I said, addiction is a very different thing. You can't think your way out of it. You can't be logical, in addiction. So those are the kind of the parameters, how addiction is very, very prevalent within, high achieving individuals.
Mhm. Well, that's a
Mm.
powerful perspective based on science,
Hmm.
history, and then
Hmm.
neurostructure. I think many of us forget that the traits driving external success can sometimes amplify internal struggles.
Absolutely.
And making sense. And I remember your approach emphasizes on the intersection of personal power and ease, a refreshing departure from, the grind culture we're so used to hearing
That's
about.
right. Yeah.
I'm sure you know that very well. And how does your coaching or you being a consultant help clients rediscover their power while rebuilding trust in themselves?
So, as I said, my approach is very, very different, and it's a very personalized approach. It's a very person-centered program that I have, and it's not one size fits all. It's very bespoke. But
Uh-huh.
the first thing that I do, I'm all about energy. As I sort of mentioned before, that
Yeah.
I see life in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration, and that's how I got well. And
Mhm.
so my first approach is really finding out what the particular addiction is. And as you know, there's a absolute menu of addictions and getting bigger by the minute, okay? And find what that addiction, particularly is, and start to work on the energy components of that addiction. So the energetic component in a person's energy field. Now, a lot of people out there will be thinking, "Oh my goodness, this sounds absolutely out of this world. What is this?" But frequency is playing a massive part in addiction right now. And we're looking at things like ultrasound. There are other frequency technologies that are helping people with addiction. So if people want to go and do some homework, it's
Mhm.
not woo-woo anymore. It's out there. And I use particular devices and frequency which
Yeah.
actually dissolve and dissipate that energy block within the field because it's like a beacon. It's like it's still signaling that there's a problem, even though the person may be working on themselves, may have had loads of therapy. You've still got that thing still, beeping a signal that there's an addiction. So we do spend a lot of work working on the client with that. But then I start to recode. So I'm looking at working with the inner self again. So going
Oh.
down to that inner self that hasn't been developed, that's probably stayed quite young,
Mhm.
um, as they've been achieving and achieving, achieving. That's not been developed. So we look at recoding. I use things like ancestral healing.
Mhm.
Maybe there was trauma in the past. There's lots of stories people tell themselves that aren't true and keep them self-sabotage and keep them stuck in addiction. So we work through that.
Mhm.
Maybe it could be past life regression. So, working just for, in their lives at the moment, what they were like when they were younger.
Right.
Then also future life progression, which is, really developing a stronger connection with future self. So it's a future orientated recovery. So they start to see themselves and what they want to achieve when they're well and they're sober and what action steps they need to take. So the motivation to keep on the recovery path, it gets stronger. And then we look at the kind of self-worth practices. You know, many people who are very successful are very, very confident, but on
Mhm.
the inside, it's not the case. On the inside, they're still frightened, they're still scared. A lot of the time they spend a lot of time hiding who they really are. And this is
Yeah.
what I'm all about, is getting for them to know who they really are is okay. It's
Mhm.
fine. And it's okay to show that. And it's okay to show that vulnerability.
Right.
So that is really important and giving them the tools to help them with that.
Mhm. And the
And
way
then
you plan.
lastly,
Aha.
pardon?
Okay. Sorry.
Oh, and then lastly, just giving them the kind of the tools to handle social situations, to be able to expand that kind of human operating system that they're in and, make it more flexible, make themselves more flexible, be able to create genuine connections with other people, deepen that trust in themselves. So it's congruent. So the success out there matches the success inside.
Right. And the way you blend science, energetics, and holistic practices that you mentioned has been proven to be effective as you've done it for yourself. I also like the
Yes.
idea. I also like the idea of connecting with your future self. It feels like the future of recovery work. And finally, as you continue to expand your impact through speaking and now podcasting, what's next for you, Dr. Olabunmi, and how can we tune in your sober sweet spot or get involved in your mission?
My mission really is to help as many people in as many ways as possible. And once this is all up and running, my next step is to be able to train therapists
Oh,
um, in my method and the
mhm.
recovery code system. So train therapists with bioresonance and doing what I do so that we can get it out there and help as many people as possible. So
Yeah.
I'm collaborating with a really well-renowned, wonderful woman, and we're trying to get this together sort of this year, get it up and get it running. So that's where I'm going because it is very exciting and
Sounds very exciting.
the
I was
way we
going to
see
say.
addiction now, the way we do see addiction now is very, very different.
Well, multiplying is a really good strategy to cater more to
Yeah,
those
yeah.
people in need because there are really a lot. And you've given us so much today.
Thousands, millions,
Uh,
millions of people. And it's getting worse by the day because, addictions are, getting bigger. There's more and more. Oh, cut that anyway. Sorry.
mhm.
I'm talking too much.
No, I love listening to you. So, I mean, you've been giving us so much today, like finding your own unique sweet spot and redefining recovery as a journey of purpose and passion. And this would be really, really helpful. I mean, not only for high achievers you're catering to, but actually for anyone seeking real transformation. So,
Absolutely.
thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for coming back.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Miles. Thank
Thank you
you.
for bringing joy to us today, Dr. Olabunmi.
Thank you very much.
You're very much welcome to come back. I'm going to await the podcast.
All right, yeah, brilliant. Yeah, I'll send the link as soon as it's up, and just
Yes,
give us a
please.
cheers. Yeah, because we've got I've kind of got a launch team.
Yay.
So people who are kind of interested in just going, yeah, I'm going to support. My agency are going to bring me some artwork, and if you want to post it on X-Raised or anything like that, give us a high five or anything, some good reviews. That'd be nice.
Sure, of course. So, guys, you can tune in to your sober sweet spot on Spotify or iTunes. Let her guide you to break free and discover a better way of living. And to everyone out there watching or listening around the world, thank you so much for tuning in and for inspiring us to
Ah,
provide more insightful episodes like this one. Until next time, thank you so much again, Dr. Olabunmi. As she
thank
would
you.
say or might say, don't forget to find your sweet spot.
Thank you.
This has
Smiles.
been
Bye.
Bye. This has been
Bye.
your host,
Bye.
Miles. Stay focused and inspired with X-Rays.